I've got my kitty here with me today. If you hear some purring. There have been times in my life where I felt like I had to get loud or even call names for the other person to listen to me. For example, my husband, he grew up in a home where teasing and making fun of each other and sarcasm, being critical, that was normal in his family. He didn't think it was a big deal. So early in our marriage, when he would tease or make fun of me, sometimes even criticize me harshly, he wouldn't think anything of it. It was, he didn't feel like that was anything worth getting upset over. But I didn't like it. And I really wanted him to understand that this kind of behavior is hurting me. Maybe I'm too sensitive, but whatever the case, I didn't like it. And what I ended up finding out, and as usual, I found out the hard way through trial and error, was that it was actually more effective if I could just stay calm and attend to my own hurt feelings, validate myself rather than trying to force him to understand my perspective or force him to apologize. I spent a lot of time trying to get him to say he was sorry, but he wasn't sorry because he didn't think it was a problem. But if I could stay calm, then I was clear-headed enough to know how to kindly and honestly communicate my boundary to him. That was way more effective. I was kind and honest, but I also refused to get into petty arguments about whether my feelings were valid or not. And by doing that, I didn't give him an excuse to fight with me because I wasn't arguing with him. I was stating the fact of this is how I feel when you do this. I expressed how I felt, but I didn't let it turn into this negative ping pong back and forth exchange. And that turned out to be a lot more effective than fighting or trying to convince him of anything. And I don't ever want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but sometimes if someone is violating your boundary, you do have to step back and just allow them to sit with their own anger or frustration and discomfort. And maybe they're upset that you have a boundary, but you have to leave space for that. The answer isn't to self-betray and to say, I don't have feelings and I don't feel this way. And what I came to understand was that I was actually giving him an out by arguing with him. I was giving his ego exactly what it wanted, a fight. Because a fight would create this back and forth exchange that was recreating what he was actually accustomed to from childhood. It felt familiar to him. It felt normal. And it also would kind of justify unkind words and actions between us because in his mind, if we're both fighting, we're both arguing, then we're both guilty and therefore he didn't need to own up to anything. He didn't need to accept the fact that he had said something that had really hurt me. Now, I'm not trying to paint him as the problem. He grew up with his family's culture and my family was more avoidant. So I'm not saying that's any better, but they were different. And I have my own issues that I need to address, of course. But I'm bringing this up simply because I know firsthand that it's effective to stay calm in a storm and disengage from the drama instead of getting dragged into a fight. Communicate, but not get dragged into a back and forth that doesn't resolve anything. It takes some self-mastery to not jump in the ring and just start taking verbal jabs at each other. And once you start enforcing boundaries, one of two things will happen. One, that person will exit your life. They might, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to trust that if they can't handle your healthy, sincere boundaries, then they weren't meant to be in your life. Or two, they'll start respecting your boundaries. But either way, it's a win. What's not a win is letting people walk all over you and mistreat you and pretending it's okay while you build up resentment. I'm not a fan of avoidance. I am a fan of staying calm, though, whenever possible. Taking the time that you need to process what's really happening and what's really going on in here, and then responding calmly and powerfully instead of getting reactive and being reactive to the situation and out of control. Because the goal is that we don't let other people's reactions dictate our own. Just because they responded childishly or cruelly or however they responded, that does not dictate your response or who you show up as. You're still sovereign. You still get to be you. It doesn't have to be eye for an eye. The secret is to not take their behavior personally, no matter how personal it feels. You can't really judge or compare other people's behavior to your own because you both have different backgrounds and you have different DNA. Different nurture, different nature. You can't really say they're bad, I'm good. You're just different. There is a lot of power in not being easily sucked into other people's bad moods or childish behavior, and we all have days where we say and do things that we regret. I used to think that I would have to become an ascended master to not get sucked into other people's petty dramas, especially if I felt attacked. But I had to stop making excuses for my own behavior, my own reactivity, and my own responses. I had to make mastering my own reactions, my own responses, a personal priority. Because that's what I'm in charge of. I'm not in charge of anybody out there. I'm in charge of me. So let's go for it. Let's be those rare, liberated souls that cannot be controlled by outside circumstances or people. You will be 1 in a million kind of human being if you fully master your responses and develop healthy boundaries that you keep instead of letting your ego be in charge. But we're capable of it. We're capable of that. Be the one that changes the world for the better for yourself and for everyone in your life. Be that example. Be that bright light. Thank you for joining me. I love you. I'm Beck Sato. I'll see you soon.